You're listening to Let Me Speak to a Manager with Frank Cava and Ian Mathews.
What a crock of shit.
Yeah, that was hot mic, Sam.
You can't say God on the air.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Frankie!
Ian, you son of a bitch!
We are going to talk about something that you and I know a lot about, losing cultures. That is what this short form episode is going to be about. And it is brought upon because I am still reeling and depressed about my beloved Detroit Lions game on Sunday. So I don't know how to start, but we had Baltimore beat, who's one of the best teams in the league, and the Lions are an absolutely terrible team. And the Lions have this way of doing this to me. They've been doing it for 40 years of I start games by saying we're going to get killed. I don't care anyway. I'll watch a quarter and then I'll turn it off. And they hang around and get me to believe until the fourth quarter, where something inevitably depressing and horrible happens. And in this case, not only the Lions lose on a last second field goal, it was a record-breaking 66-yard field goal that hit a crossbar and still found a way to eke its way over the line. And this came after Baltimore converted a 4th and 19, and the referees missed a big penalty. Everything that pretty much could go wrong for the Lions went wrong in the last minute. And this isn't new. The Lions haven't won a playoff game since 1991. And in fact, they have one playoff win since 1957, which is incredibly depressing. And yet I'm still a diehard fan. But I think what fascinates me, Frank, and if you're watching this, you can see that Frank has his Miami Dolphins shirt on. And I think the Dolphins aren't quite the Lions, but damn, they're close as a losing organization. They've given Frank a lot of pain over the years rooting for that squad.
So I'm going to answer. I'm going to retort to your terrible Detroit Lions with this. This is the former Miami Dolphin theme song whenever they would score a touchdown. Miami has the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. So this is the song they sang in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s. And somewhere around like 2007, they stopped. They now sing a Jimmy Buffett song, something about living in paradise. Every time the Dolphins score a touchdown, because we're not going to the fucking Super Bowl. We're not winning. Yeah. We're absolutely terrible.
That's
and
hilarious.
You can no longer alienate your fan base with a song that is not relevant.
That is hilarious. The fans were like, stop making us sing a song that says Super Bowl. You're lying. We're not even
We
close.
haven't been to the Super Bowl since 1984. It's 1984 season. It's been 40 years. Like to show
you
you
got
how
hammered in that game, right?
Yeah. I mean, who cares? We were there.
Yeah.
But like we haven't been back since. But to show how futile they have been, at my wedding, which was 4 years ago, my best friend made a toast. And he said in the toast, because we spent our entire childhood worshiping the Dolphins, he literally cursed and goes, the Dolphins still haven't won a fucking Super Bowl. He literally said that in the toast.
It's awesome. It's awesome. It was a great toast.
So when you're talking about futile, the Dolphins haven't won a playoff game. I think you said it, you guys haven't won one since what, 91? I don't think we won one like 2004 or 5. It's been like a decade and a half.
Yeah. So I think what fascinates me, Frank, is this was for a longtime Lions fan like me, out of the top like 20 most heartbreaking losses that are hilarious for outsiders to see. I think the Lions might have 4 or 5 of them. You know, and they're always in these really big public moments. Aaron Rodgers throws a 70-yard Hail Mary on Monday night
on a Thursday night. Yeah.
On a 4th down after there was a penalty to give him one more throw. I was at that game. We beat Atlanta, and then they called a touchdown back with Golden Tate and run the clock off and we lose the game. Like, it's always these, like, Lions fans are given a win and then it's taken away at the last second. There's so many of these. Brett Favre did it to us in a wild card game that Nilo and I went to. Like, there's so many of these last second, I can't even believe that they found a way to lose that game. It's amazing moments. But Frank, what blows me away, this team that just lost on Sunday, 40% of them weren't on last year's team. They were on different teams. The coaching staffs knew, the general managers knew, the whole coaching staff, I'm talking top to bottom, was replaced. None of these people were there for all these games that we've been tortured by for 40 years. And yet they found a way to lose a game in just as excruciating fashion. So the question is, how do you change a losing culture? Like, no matter who comes in, the new group finds a way to lose just the way the old group was losing. How do you change it?
So I'm going to read you another quote. Losing is a disease as contagious as polio. Losing is a disease as contagious as syphilis. Losing is a disease as contagious as bubonic plague. Attacking
the natural.
Attacking one, but affecting all, but curable. So
do they need to hire Roy Hobbs? Is that what they need to do?
That is a line from a 1980s movie, The Natural. Ian nailed it. Roy Hobbs is this wonder story. And the Dolphins and the Lions have both had Roy Hobbs. The Dolphins had Dan Marino. The Lions have had Barry Sanders and Megatron, two of the greatest players, both of which retired at 29 because the team was so bad they just hung it up early. Like,
couldn't do it. Don't even trade me. I just hate football. The Lions literally made them hate football. Like, don't even trade me. I quit. I quit football.
So what you realize is this: it takes a lot to overcome bad culture. So let's talk about some bad culture that turned into great culture. In the 1970s and the 1980s, the Dolphins ruled the world. They were great. They had the only undefeated season. They went to an incredible Super Bowl. They had an incredible coach. They had incredible ownership. They were great. The Patriots were awful. The Patriots were so bad in the 70s and 80s that Bob Kraft basically stole them. And what he did is he negotiated, because he's a real estate guy and he understood contract law, and he basically bought the stadium and the parking lot, and he forced the team owners to sell to him because they were so poorly run. And he literally told the owners in a negotiation they're like, you're a really hard landlord, because he owned the stadium, and the team owners said that to him. And he said, you should read your lease. And they didn't read their lease because they were bad business people. And what Bob Kraft did is he was smart. He took ownership. He kind of used the Matterhorn technique. He bought the parking lot, the ground, the stadium, and he ultimately bought the team. And then he put smart people in charge. And he went to Cambridge, it wasn't Cambridge Analytica. It was a company that Bain Capital was from Boston. Bain Capital is smart people all go to Harvard. He took people from Bain Capital who had no business in football that were really smart. He put them from the top down, and 3 decades later, they have an amazing run because it was redone. What the Dolphins have done a terrible job at, and what the Lions have done a terrible job at, is they never had a reset. They have never had a reset, and all these good players and good people from other teams come in, and it's so dysfunctional around there. The Bengals can kind of be lumped into this category. It's just so bad. This inertia carries with them. But the Patriots did a hard reset with new leadership, and because of that, they went on a different trajectory.
It'll be interesting to see how the Jaguars do with it. So I totally agree with you. So the Patriots are a really good example of this. I think the Colts are a good example. They got a new owner, a new general manager who was good, a star quarterback who's kind of the lead, right? And a new coach with Dungy. So they had all 4 of those, because the Colts were awful for 2 decades, 3 decades, forever since they left Baltimore. And then they kind of, I think the organizations that do it well replace the owner, the general manager, the head coach, and they get a star player who's a coach on the field, which is always the quarterback. And it will be really interesting to see how the Jaguars do, because the Jaguars got a new owner. They brought in a new general manager. They brought in a new coach in Urban Meyer, and they drafted the number 1 pick, who was the consensus best quarterback going in college. It'll be interesting if that kind of that hard reset. So I haven't followed ownership for the Dolphins really well, but what I know about the Lions, through all these coaching changes that I just talked about and all these GMs that came through, the one thing that was always consistent was the Ford family since 1957, since right after 57, the Ford family has been in control of the Lions, and they've been just the worst ownership group in football. It's not that they didn't care. They're incompetent. Right? These are the third, fourth, fifth generation of Henry Ford. So they're already terrible at managing the Ford Motor Company.
Let's stop for a second. They're not incompetent at everything. Now, the Ford, if you get into Ford, you can say that they're not as good as the old man who started it, but that these people that own football franchises, like the Washington football team, formerly the Redskins, are owned by a multi-billionaire. These people are not incompetent at everything. But what you realize is skills are not transferable. If Dan Snyder is the owner of the Washington football team, was brilliant in marketing. It's hard to believe he was so good at marketing. He's killed the golden goose that was the Redskins subscriptions, and season ticket holders. But these people are typically good at something and have accomplished something. And there's a line from a show where they said, the way that we knight people in America is we give them sports team franchises. So these people are good at something, but those skills are not transferable, or their egos are too big, or they're not current enough, or they think, hey, I'm great at this, so I can be great at this. Those things don't transfer.
Yeah. My argument would be William Clay Ford inherited money and did a bad job at the Ford Motor Company. You can see what happened in that company. A bad executive is a bad executive. If you switch them over to a different business, no matter how much money they have, if they don't make good decisions, they don't make good decisions. Now, it'll be interesting to see how some of that changes, because a lot of those things they've gotten right over time. Matt Stafford, I will not be surprised if Matt Stafford goes and wins an MVP this year. He's destroying it with the Rams right now. Just looks amazing. We had the quarterback. I think Campbell's a good coach. I really was excited about that. So, we've had different pieces, like you said, but if the top level is incompetent, it is really hard for the rest of an organization to change if there's a losing culture. I think it gets overlooked in the NFL, like what good ownership matters and how involved they are, the kind of things that they do to keep it going. Because there's a lot of NFL franchises. Look at the Rooneys, look at Pittsburgh. That's been good for 50 years. I mean, that's a solid organization top down, but they've, similar to the Fords, they had one owner, we had another, and their path went very different than ours. So I always kind of feel like now what I will say is the old man died for Detroit, and he willed it to his wife, who then gave it to her daughter. And I think she has a chance to really change it because she's a little bit different in the way she thinks. But for me, a losing culture doesn't change by switching the people out on the team. I think that's hard to ask, because what happens is, even if you switch out a lot of them, they learn from the other group. That quickly becomes who they are. And the Lions have drafted some incredible people from incredible colleges and winning organizations, but I've just seen how quickly they become disgruntled, how quickly they learn how to lose, how to not give effort. And it's really hard to change if you don't change from the top.
I agree completely. So you brought the Steelers, and I'm going to bring something up. Do you know how many coaches the Steelers have had since 1969?
3.
Correct. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin.
Yep.
Most likely all 3 will be Hall of Famers. Noll and Cowher are. Tomlin will probably get there. I think he's won.
For sure. He deserves it.
Yeah, I think he's won 1 Super Bowl and Cowher won the other. But the point is, stable organization, good structure, a place that is always looked up to. You can't win every year. I mean, this is how things work in a salary cap league. You can't, but they're always competitive. They're always well put together. They always have good continuity. They're looked at and respected because, I mean, that's from 1969 to today is 52 years. In a 52-year run, they've had 3 coaches. They've had a handful of general managers. People turn over, people die, things move on, but the structure from the top down is great, and they are always consistent, unlike all these other teams that don't have that. So let's pivot this to business for a second, and then let's end it. This is a quickie. I think it's really important to talk about your top-down management structure. It's incredibly culture, people, expectations, thoughts, good decision makers. Like, the difference in good and bad decisions can be very minimal, but if you add those up over years and years and years, you get the difference between similar stories. The Steelers and the Lions, or even the Steelers and the Giants. The Giants are very well run, but they've got the wrong coach. I think they have a good culture. They have good ownership, but they've had the wrong coach. They've had a couple of good quarterbacks in there, and they've had flashes, but they're not as consistent over time.
A great organization can have a few bad years. That doesn't mean it's a losing organization. It means they had a couple of bad years. They made a few, bad decisions along
bad
the way.
hires, bad decisions,
But
bad
there's
drafts,
no way to
whatever.
describe the Lions in 60 years of losing aside from top down, because think about how many amazing people when you've got the top 5 draft pick every year for 60 years, they're hiring amazing talent. And so for me, the lesson for anyone who's a manager out there, an executive that's running a business, you can't fix a losing culture just by hiring better workers. We just got to hire better people. We got to just bring some better people in. They will quickly assimilate to the culture you have if you're not giving better direction from the top. You said it, top down, it matters. The best employees in the world can get recruited away from a competitor, but if they're brought into an acidic organization, they're not going to change it. The workers won't change the culture of an organization. It doesn't work. It has to start top down.
So I'm going to tell one story and I'm going to be done. So coronavirus, the coronavirus to me exposed weakness. I said this before. If you were physically weak, it killed you. But if your business was physically weak, it killed it. Really good restaurants figured out how to be open 7 days later. They adapted. They they took their menu. They got it really narrow. Their staff went way down. They figured out how to have outdoor seating and how to have takeout, and they adapted quickly. Bad companies have had good people. So bad companies are exposed in the free market. And because of that, they go away and there's good people to be hired. The difference between NFL football and the regular market is these teams are well ensconced, they're protected, and the Lions' incompetence is tied to a league that is not incompetent. And they continue to rise and be profitable because they're not standing on their own. They're part of a league that's helped to float a bunch of bad decisions. And because of that, you see these consistently bad performers. And if we go sport over sport, you could look at this with basketball, you could look at this with baseball, you could look at this, I don't know hockey well enough, but there's examples. There's just bad organizations that are in a good league, so they continue to look bad. But on the business side, there's more truth.
I'll leave it with one story that I think you'll appreciate. So I would say an NFL team within the umbrella of the NFL in general is similar to a mortgage company within a large home builder.
Yes.
Right? So think about how long NVR Mortgage dragged along with crappy customer service within the confines of a bigger organization because it was helped along. So the part of the reason why the Lions are allowed to keep losing every year and not replace the owner is they're entitled, they're carried by the,
they have an incredible parent
brand.
Yep.
The only way NVR Mortgage changed its service is the CEO decided it was time to change. And he went in and he hired a bunch of executives and he started managing the company more directly himself. That's the only way it changed.
Yep.
And I think unless the NFL went in and forced an ownership change, I think I'm going to keep wearing these hats and looking like a dumbass every Sunday and being depressed about my team because I don't think it's ever going to completely change.
Hey, buddy, orange looks great on me and Honolulu blue looks great on you.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. Hey, subscribe and give us 5 stars, especially if you're an NFL fan. And I think just because we're fans of Miami and Detroit, we should get a pity 5-star review out of you. Maybe give some comments, especially if you're like a Patriots or a Packers fan.
Miami has the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We moved the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen.
It's amazing.
And when you
that
say
they switched
Miami,
to cheeseburger in paradise for a touchdown instead
we're
of Super
talking
Bowl.
Super Bowl.
That's our aspirations are too high. Let's talk about cheeseburgers. Let's talk Jimmy Buffett. We quit. We're giving up.
Bro.
See ya.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.